Hello, you guys. I wanted to do a quick video on Unit 1 from Michael Vence, the great Michael Vence, about verbs in the present tense. Basically, we want to focus on what is the difference between present simple and present continuous. Now, obviously, you guys have all been exposed to these two different tenses. But a lot of people make mistakes with this. They use present simple when they should be using present continuous. And what I've noticed more often is that people like to use present continuous in places that they really shouldn't. And Michael Vince has some good explanations about when we use the present simple and when we use the present continuous. And now this isn't always something easy. Sometimes there are, of course, there's often exceptions to the rule, but there are some rules that we can kind of follow. And I just kind of wanted to go through the presentation, the PowerPoint presentation that I already put up on the Moodle, and maybe just discuss it real quickly. And let me get that going for us here. And hopefully this will work. Okay, so hopefully you can all see this. And so we want to start, the main idea is what's the difference between present simple and present continuous? And we're going to start just with how they're formed. And you should already know this. This is something you should have learned back in basic school, but I know that there's a few mistakes I've noticed that people tend to make even when they've studied English for 20 years. And so we kind of just want to go through those real quick and hopefully just to remind you to avoid these certain mistakes. One is present simple, of course, you're always going to need a do or a does with questions. Like that's just, this. More times than not, it's going to be do. It depends on what our subject is, but it can be does. You notice this is important, this S here at the end with does questions. So for example, does Boženka, does dad, does the dog, these things, this S is something that's very important in third person, but when we're forming questions in present simple, you need to use do or does. Now, except if we have subject questions, and subject questions are questions where we don't know what the subject is. So the subject generally is like, Joseph has a car. Joseph is the subject. Now, when we don't know, car is the object. Now, when we don't know the subject of this sentence, we want to find that out and we ask a question. That's when we create a subject question. And these questions, subject questions, do not have a do or a does generally. And very often we use who, what, or which with them, which you can see here. Here's a couple examples. Who lives next to Boženka? Notice there's no do or does. Sometimes we hear a lot in Czech. Who does live next to Boženka? That's Nini Dobry. Nini Dobry anglicky. Okay, so what creature lives under the house? Again, there's no do or does because we want to find out the creature that lives. That's the subject. We're trying to find out that subject. Here we're trying to figure out, someone lives next to Boženka. Who is it? We're trying to find that out. And so those, we use these subject questions quite a bit. And a lot of times I hear people try to slip a does in there, and you just want to avoid that because native speakers recognize that immediately. It's a common mistake. But remember, 90%, 85% of the questions you're going to make in present simple, you're going to need a do or does. If it's a subject question, though, you leave that do or does out. Most likely it's a does, it's not a do, but sometimes it can be. Now, and again, with negative, we have you need a don't or a doesn't. The verb stays the same. I don't work in a circus, so there's our verb work, which is, it's not changed, it's not conjugated. The conjugation is here in the don't or the doesn't. And again, I want you to notice on the third person, there's this S. this S sound. We're going to come back to that in a minute. I know this should be just a review for you guys. I just want to kind of clarify it. And again, this is something that I want to just bring up one more time, that the third person in the present simple needs an S somewhere. Okay, if it's a verb, we need it at the end. Here we have, she eats healthy. George has a dog. S. Eats. S. Has. Franklin writes. S. Hilda washes. S. Okay, so the end of it is an S. All right, in questions, does Hilda wash her baby? Does George have a dog? There's an S sound, third person, simple, present simple, S sound. Yeah, needed. Negative. No, he doesn't have a baby. No, he doesn't. She doesn't eat healthy. So whenever we have that third person, we're going to have an S sound somewhere. It doesn't matter if it's negative, if it's a question, or it's a normal verb. All right. And again, this is just something to remind you guys of, because if you can really get this down and incorporate it into your English, makes it sound a lot better. Okay. And now this is kind of what we really want to focus on in this short little video is, when do we use present simple? What are the rules? And, you know, we're going to compare that later to present continuous. But first, let's just talk about present simple. The first one is facts, something that's always true. So, you know, it's like fairly straightforward. It's a fact. Falco works at Setusa, which we have here. So, you know, that's a fact. That's where he works. He's there every day. You know, that's his job. That's what he does. Boženka eats a lot of pork. That's a fact, because I know Boženka. She does eat a lot of pork. It's a fact. She loves pork. Kurkovica. She loves the kurkovica. All right. So that's just something that's true. It's a fact. Okay. Water freezes at 100 degrees. That's a scientific fact. Again, these are just things that are true. And if you want a negative, they don't celebrate Christmas. Okay. Jehovah's Witnesses, for example. I don't know if you've heard of them, but they don't celebrate Christmas. Jehovah's Witnesses don't celebrate Christmas. That's just a fact. They don't do it. So that's one place where we use present simple, something that is a fact, you know. Second, and this is one that is very helpful, and this is routines and habits, things that we repeat, that we do over and over, even if it's something we do once a year, once every 10 years, or humanity does it once every 1,000 years. If it's a repeated action, then we're going to use present simple. So here we have our examples. Frank goes to the gym on Thursdays. All right, that's present simple. A lot of people want to use present continuous here, but that's wrong. That's wrong. You don't want to do that. And we have Margaret usually starts work at 7:30. It's a routine. It's a habit. It's also a fact in this situation. So does Dylan do yoga every week? Do is our verb here. Does Dylan do yoga every week? Again, this is like something that he does repeatedly, that he does over and over. All right. Now, so when you have a routine, excuse me, or a habit, we have some keywords. And if you see these words, they're going to help you. You're going to be like, oh, wait, so if I'm using this word, it's actually probably a repeated action. All right, it's a routine of some sort, and it means that I'm going to probably use present simple. All right, for example, we have every day. You know, he brushes his teeth every day. Once a month, he takes a shower. Once a month, it's, you know, that once a month, we know that it's repeated. It could be once a week. It could be once a day. It could be once a year. It could be once a decade. It doesn't matter. On Mondays. When we have Mondays and we have an S at the end, on Thursdays, on Fridays, on the weekends, it means that something he does or she does, like on Mondays. On Mondays, he works at Amazon because they pay a lot, I guess. Usually, again, these are words, these kind of words like usually, sometimes, often, which we have down here. These are words that let us know how many times we do this action. And if we're going to do that, this something that's done over and over, we're going to use present simple, like almost always. There's always exceptions, but just this is really something you can take. In English, we say take to the bank, which means you can bet on it. All right. So look these over. These are all, things that you want to keep in mind. If it's a routine, if it's a habit, he smokes too much. She never calls Maminka. All right. That's just like, these never would be one of these keywords. Okay. All right. Now, so this one's a little bit, Vence talks about this one here with instructions, directions, and itineraries. And itineraries essentially are schedules. If you have a schedule, if you're, going to, you've joined a club and you're having a big weekend where all the club members are meeting. It's a hiking club, and you're meeting at 8 o'clock. At the square, you're going to hike, and there's an itinerary for the day. At like 10 o'clock, you have to be at the top of the mountain. At 12:30, you're going to have a lecture halfway down at the cafe, whatever. This is your itinerary. All right. So very often when we describe these things or use these things or instructions and directions, you're going to use present simple. Now, again, a lot of native speakers, they'll throw in present continuous, they're going to throw in other stuff, and it's not bad. But what's safe to say is that when you are in a situation where you're giving instructions or directions, because they're similar, if you use present simple, you're in safe territory. All right. You're not going to confuse someone. So, for example, all of you have probably bought something, or your parents have bought something that it comes in a box. You go to IKEA and you bring it home and you have to put it together, and you can't figure it out. You go online, you download the directions. It's like, okay, what are they? So first, take part A. First, unwrap the bolts. Take part A, insert it into part B. Da, 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 da. So these are usually done in present simple. Okay. Now, and directions also, which we have here. Hey, how do I get to Johannahof? For any of you who are from Litzelmajice, because that's an important place to know. How do I get to Johannahof? All right, go up the street. You're going to see a green building. Go left. Go 2 more blocks, cross the street, and on your right, you're going to see you'll see a door. See there, I'm using future tense. You'll see a door, a green door. That's it. All right. So generally, don't use continuous in these situations. Sometimes you might hear a native speaker do that, but it's very specific when it works in English. And it's much better to just get good at using instructions and directions in present simple. All right, jokes and storytelling. Again, this is the same thing. I don't want to waste too much time on this, because good jokesters, good storytellers use a variety of tenses. They use past, I'm like, I was walking home. I couldn't believe what I saw. So it's not like it has to be a simple tense, but it can be. All right. And I'm just including this here because Michael Vence uses it in his book and says that this is an example where we would use present simple to tell a joke, but you can also include other tenses, past tense, and that's good writing, that's good storytelling, good communication. But I just wanted to put this in. And then state verbs. And what are state verbs? State verbs are verbs that they describe an emotional state. And most verbs are verbs of action, like eat, you're acting, walk, you're walking, drink, I'm drinking right now. These are verbs of action, physical action. State verbs are verbs that describe or tell us about like an emotional thing inside. Here we have examples of believe. That's a verb, but like, how is that physical? It's not really, it's very difficult. Want, is that's a verb, but it's a state verb. It's a verb that describes an interior state that we have as humans. Need, love, own. Again, these are things that aren't necessary. They're not physical. They may have a physical connection, but very often state verbs do not have a simple tense. All right. So, or sometimes they do. I guess let me rephrase that. Okay. Generally, this is where the confusion comes in. Scratch what I just said. Here's where the confusion comes in. So generally state verbs are only simple tense. All right. So for example, need. Let's just talk about need. I can say, I need a new car. All right. That's good English. Present simple. I can't say I am needing a new car. That's just bad English. Always. Needing is always bad. All right. You can use it as a noun. That's something different. But to use it in a present continuous is just wrong. Want is the same thing. Want is always going to be simple. All right. Want is present simple. It's always going to be like, Sally wants to go to Tunisia. You don't say is wanting, it just doesn't happen. Now, so some state verbs though, and this is where the confusion, what I was just talking about, what I said is that some verbs do have a continuous form, some state verbs. So for example, here we have think. He thinks he's smart. He thinks he's really smart. He thinks he's super smart. We get that. And we also have though, he's thinking about moving to Ireland. So now there's a difference once we go into these state verbs that have a continuous tense. The meaning's going to change a little bit and how we understand it, like what we're communicating. So he thinks he's super smart, like I hope you understand that. And he's thinking about moving to Ireland. That's different. If I say he thinks he's moving to Ireland, that's something different than he's thinking about moving to Ireland. We'll discuss that more, the difference between these two a little bit later. But in general, state verbs or only in the simple tense. One of the examples is McDonald's, like we have the verb love, and a lot of people are like, oh yeah, but hey, McDonald's is I'm loving it. That's like their their slogan, right? And I'm like, yeah, well, the reason they use that is because it's actually bad grammar. So when people hear it, they notice it. They're like, wow, that's not right. But then they don't forget it. I'm loving it, So, so keep that in mind. But of course, here's one of those places where there are exceptions. Now we're going to go to present continuous, and how do we make it? How do we create it? Most of you guys know this. We use the verb be plus an ing verb, or what we call a gerund. And when we create the present continuous, only the be changes, only the be conjugates. All right, so here we have examples. He is walking. They are swimming. I am buying. It is working. So here we see that the verb to be changes. And the second verb, there's always two verbs in present continuous. It's always an ing verb. Again, I know you guys know this. Here's some example. Look, Bojanka is throwing Tony's clothes out the window. That's from a real life example. And Dylan and Lenka aren't getting married at the town hall. Here's our negative. We'll talk about that. And we have, is mom making Spanish bird for lunch? Okay, so there's a question. So again, here we have our verb, is mom, here's our verb to be and making, and that's how it works. That's present continuous. I know you know this. And when do we use it? What's the difference between present continuous And that's what we really want to focus on. And I want to help you guys with, is that like, maybe, you'll figure out, oh, this is where I use present continuous, and this is where I can use present simple. Now, the first example is, and this is probably what they taught you in school, your zakladní škola, is like, it's something that's happening right now. We can see it. Maybe we can't see it, but we know it's happening right now. So we say, look, here's an example. Joe and Marvin are fighting. There they are. They're right over there. Joe and Marvin, they're out in the hall. They're fighting about something. I don't know, but I can hear them. They are yelling. It's happening right now. Okay. So it's not a routine. It may be. I can say Joe and Marvin fight all the time, present simple. Okay, as soon as I say all the time, I got to use present simple. All right, that man is throwing his garbage on the grass. Okay, I can see him. He's right out there. It's Usti. Happens all the time. All right, man is throwing his garbage on the grass. Oh my gosh, look at that. It's terrible what he's doing. And where are the children? Where are the children? They're sleeping. It's right now. They're in bed. They are sleeping in their room. Okay, so if I'm going to use a verb, I'm going to use a continuous. And same with Ben. He's watching something on his computer. Now, we also use it that's something with something that's not permanent. It's similar to number 3. It's temporary. It's not permanent. It's only happening for this kind of short period. All right. And it started here and it's going to end here. And I kind of know that. I know that this is the area. It started here somewhere and it's going to end soon. Maybe I don't need to know the exact times, but it's not permanent. All right. So if I say I'm living with Drew these days, that's kind of an important thing. If you meet me and you say, hey, Tony, what are you up to? What are you doing? It's like, oh yeah, I'm living with Drew these days. Now, when I say I'm living with Drew, it means that it doesn't mean what I'm communicating to you is that it's not permanent. I'm only going to be there for 2 months or 3 months. So if I meet you one day and I'm like, hey, Honzo, where do you live? And you say like, oh, I'm living in Diechin. I'll be like, well, wait, do you live in Diechin or are you living in Diechin? Because there's a difference, all right? If you're from Diechin and you've lived there all your life, you live in Diechin. But if you're living in Diechin, it means you're just living in Diechin for 2 months, 3 months, while your flat is being renovated, or you're living there to help your parents renovate their flat. So you're living there for a temporary period. So again, we have it here with Dagmar. Dagmar's working in Bratislava at the moment. Okay, Dagmar actually works at Situza. She's a sales lady there. And they're trying to break into the Slovak market, so they sent her there for 10 days. So where's Dagmar? She's not on vacation. She's not on holiday. She's not sick. She's working in Bratislava this week. All right, it's temporary. And again, similar with Franklin's car. All right. So now we also have it as an event in progress. That's a typo. That should be an event in progress. That's my bad. But it's not happening right now. Like we don't see it. And again, it's similar to number 2 in that we know it started here and it's going to finish sometime in the future, but we don't know when exactly. So here's one of my examples. Joel is writing a book on symbolism in poetry. All right. Joel is writing a book on symbolism in poetry. Is Joel writing it right now? No, he's not writing it right now, because Joel right now is actually giving a lecture on 17th century British poetry. But he's writing a book on symbolism, okay? And he started 6 months ago and he hopes to finish in the next 2 or 3 months. So it's in progress. This event is happening and we know it will finish. That's key. We know it will finish and we know it started here. So in this sense, it's temporary. It's not permanent. If I say Joel writes books on symbolism in poetry. What is that? That's his profession. That's what he does. Joel writes books on symbolism. All right. That's what he does, you know. But if I say he's writing a book, it's right now. It's a temporary activity. All right. So, and we have the same thing here with Michelle and Brad. All right. They got married. They love each other. It's really good for them right now. And, you know, they got a little money because grandma died, and their dad gave them a little bit of money because dad wanted them out of the Pontiac. And so they are building a house in the village. Now, are they there in the village right now building that house? No, they're not. They're not building that house like right now in the village because they're at work. But they started building it last spring and they hope to finish by next spring. So they're in the process of it. It's the same with Bill is learning Czech. He's got a 6-month course in Czech and he's trying to learn Czech. You know, good for Bill. All right. And we also use present continuous with future. Future. This is very common. We use this a lot. It's just natural, not, you know, native speakers. And very often, like you can see here, I wrote that we have time expressions like tomorrow, next week, in the summer that are connected to this. And it's, you know, we'll talk about future tenses later. And I know that most of you all know, or I hope you know, that going to is one of our future tenses. And going to essentially functions as a present continuous. You know, we are going to buy a new car. She is going to wake up early tomorrow. So that going to is present continuous the way the grammar is constructed. So we can use present continuous as a future. We do it a lot. It's not uncommon. It's not bad. And here are some simple examples. On Friday, Paul is having a birthday party at Eden. Is having. It's not today. It's not right now. It's not temporary. All right. It's on Friday. It's the future. The future. And I'm flying to LA next summer to meet my mom. Am flying. All right. To LA. I hope so. I hope I am. I'm not sure, but that's future. That's next summer. That's not now. That's not now, it's future. All right, so that's not uncommon at all. Now, and then this is a place we use it a little bit, and you'll see this, and it kind of goes against our intuition. When we know that present simple we use for routines, right? And things we do repeatedly. But for whatever reason in English, when we complain, you know, when we make complaints and we use the word always or constantly or continually, for some reason we use present continuous. We don't have to. You can use present simple, but we use present continuous and it's not seen as bad. It's not seen as bad grammar. So here we have, my roommate is always coming home drunk and eating my food. That's a routine, you know, so you should be able to say, my roommate always comes home drunk and eats my food. You can say that. You can say it in present simple. But if we use this, and remember, it needs to be a complaint. It needs to be something you're complaining about. And we use present continuous, and you're going to hear this and see it a lot. You'll get it if you ever take like a Cambridge advanced exam. Definitely these kind of examples will be on there. Bojanka is constantly telling me how old our car is. I'm complaining. I'm belly aching. I'm complaining about Bojanka again, because that's what I do. All right. And then situations where we describe change. I believe this is our last example. Change is something in process, okay? Something that's in a period of changing, in a process of change. And here we have, you know, things are changing. Many young people are giving up meat. That just happens to be true. Younger people are eating less meat. We have are giving, present continuous. Darren is getting balder and balder. You know, he's not completely bald. He started getting bald 2 years ago and he's getting bolder, he's changing, it's happening like this. We very often with this use get. And if you have is getting, we use get with present continuous to describe change very often. That's an example. All right. And oops. So so basically, I believe so basically what I wanted to do is just kind of go over those things and highlight the difference today a little bit between present simple and present continuous. And remember the main ones: present simple, facts and routines are keywords for present simple: every day, once a month, every 10,000 years, something we do repeatedly, something we do routinely on Fridays, on the weekends, at the beginning of the semester, at Christmas time. We're going to use present simple. Present continuous, and again, something it's happening right now. You all know that. Something that's kind of temporary, all right? Something it's an event in progress, it's temporary. We don't necessarily we know that it's not happening now, but we know it started somewhere and it's going to end. Those are kind of the main differences. And I believe in the other unit, unit 2, you have the next unit, you will have some decent sort of exercises that highlight the difference between, for example, like we talked about earlier, I live in New York, I'm living in New York. Boženka works in Szczyty. Boženka is working in Szczyty. Those things mean something different. And I know that a lot of people like to use like Boženka is working in Szczyty as like she works in Szczyty, but it's not. If we say she's working in Szczyty, it's temporary. All right. Okay, you guys, that's all I'm gonna, don't wanna keep it going too long. Hopefully that was useful in some way. And that's it. Adios.